Hi, I'm Ron, and this is my damn show. Let's get into it.
Judge on fact-finding. So I was disturbed that they were questioning her finding of the facts, because she said in great detail there had been no recent violence at all. Everything was under control. The local police were handling everything. The streets were empty. There was just no basis in the law to call out the National Guard in Oregon. So,
and that may be, I mean, that, look, first of all, I also wonder, I mean, the court there also seemed to be saying the president's the president. He gets to do whatever he wants. I mean, is that going to be the argument?
That is not true. That is not true. There is a statute that governs calling the National Guard into federal service. And there's two sections of it that would be important here. One is if there's a rebellion or a danger of rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States. And both judges in Chicago now and in Portland said there's no rebellion and there's no danger of rebellion. And the only other possible prong is the president is unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. And that didn't seem to be the least bit true. The laws were being enforced. Everybody was going about their business. Yes, there's peaceful protests, but we're allowed to do that in this country.
Peaceful?
Yes, sir. There were protests in June that were not particularly peaceful. There was some violence then, but by September there were 10 or 15 people marching around with signs. I'm sure you believe in First Amendment right to protest, don't you?
Yeah, but I don't believe in I don't believe in people attacking ICE facilities. I don't believe in people attacking ICE agents.
That wasn't going on.
And when you talk about what's happening now, you got a TV? I mean, turn it on. There is violence in Portland.
Can I tell you what's happening
and they're
now?
attacking federal facilities.
What is happening now?
They're attacking federal facilities. And the Portland police do nothing. They do nothing.
Because the National Guard is being called out, it is ramping up the situation. It's creating the exact
Is that license
chaos.
to commit violence?
It's creating the chaos and danger that this administration wants to create, so then it has an excuse to suppress it.
And in
it's a provocation.
In Portland, the Department of Home thanked the local law enforcement for doing such a good job, which is a clear indication that they had things under control and they didn't need DHS. Things have calmed down. No one is endorsing violence against anyone, but things have calmed down. Not at this table.
Some people are. Some people think it's great.
This takes you back to 2020 during the Summer of Love, when everyone said, no, they're just peacefully protesting. People are destroying federal government property.
Now in Portland.
People are absolutely hindering federal law enforcement from doing their job.
Did you read the judge's
findings?
findings?
The President of the United States absolutely has the authority
The judge has
to activate the National Guard and to bring National Guard in to keep the peace and to protect federal facilities.
Hold on one second. Hold on one second, Christine. Hold on one second. Let me let him finish.
He has the authority if those were the facts. But if you read the recitation of the facts that the judge found, there's no records of that.
Judge,
the local police had a day-to-day.
Judge, you just said that when the National Guard showed up, people became enraged. It's not a license.
Oh, no, that's after federalizing the Guard.
Let me just let you finish your statement, because you were saying the police had a day-to-day recitation.
They did, and it's in her opinion. They produced logs, and they showed what happened every single day for the last 30 days. There was no violence at all. There was no destruction at all. They walked around with their signs, 10 to 15 people walking in front of the ICE facility.
If there's no violence and there's no mayhem and there's nothing going on, why would people be so enraged at the idea of a handful of National Guardsmen standing around?
Because we don't want the military, we don't believe in the military controlling our cities. And
they're not going to control anything. What if they're just standing there? What if they're just standing guard? That doesn't control
Scott's standing guard. We also have the 10th Amendment. We reserve to the states the police power. Sorry.
Let me answer Scott's question. I helped lead disaster response under Joe Biden. And the thing that kept us up at night was when there was a bridge collapse, when there was a shooting, when there was a hurricane, which thank God there has not been a major hurricane so far this year. The time in which the National Guard could be deployed in an expeditious way was critical to saving lives. When you look at what's happening in D.C., you have National Guard members shagging foul balls in Little League practices. You have them marching around Georgetown. We need them trained and ready to go in the instant of a disaster. Every minute we're distracted by sending the National Guard away from where they're based to all around the country to do things like that makes us all less safe. That's why it's a problem.
I don't think it makes anybody in Washington less safe.
There's a lot of academic pontificating and things going on up here, but I wore both uniforms as both the police officer and a member of the military. You don't wait until after the crime has happened and then you say, oh, we're going to send the resources in after something's already happened. You read, Judge, in your order there, that if there is the thought that there's danger, if there's the intelligence that there's danger, if there's the chance understands that there's going to be
catch
danger
the
of
word,
those things.
danger of a
It put the
rebellion.
resources there to prevent those things from
Excuse
happening.
me,
That's
danger
what you
of
do.
a rebellion.
Danger
There's
of
no,
rebellion.
there's
Define
no
it for different.
rebellion or danger
I
of a
mean, and there is
rebellion.
no intelligence.
That's a strong word.
Anytime you are stopping
Hold on.
federal law enforcement
So-
from doing their
so
job,
hold on
or
a
you're
second.
breaking property,
So
federal
to-
property, it's a rebellion.
To the judge's
Happening today,
point,
of course.
in Chicago, there was a different ruling today. They halted President Trump's ability to bring the National Guard there. There, the district court judge says, I have seen no credible evidence that there has been a rebellion in Illinois. The deployment of the National Guard may lead to civil unrest and will only add fuel to the fire that the Trump administration has started as part of its immigration enforcement
And one
action.
last quote. She said the DHS assessment of the protests are unreliable.
By the way,
are
this
unreliable.
judge is so out of line, blaming the president of the United States for enforcing federal immigration law and saying that's the problem.
Yeah, that's not how
He's
law
the
enforcement
president.
works,
He
unfortunately.
enforces the laws, and she's saying it's a problem that he's choosing to enforce laws that have been on the books for
Law enforcement, unfortunately, doesn't work that way. You don't send resources in and say, hey, Mr. President, don't send those National Guard troops there because it's going to make people upset and they're going to break the law. That's not how public
I'm
safety
sorry,
works
but
in this
there is
country.
a
And in
statute.
Texas,
There's
we've
a
already seen the
statute.
Supreme Court say in Texas
Yeah.
that the President of the United States has the ability and the authority on immigration law. The National Guard is going in to protect these ICE facilities that people are
They don't seem to be needed. They were protecting themselves quite well,
Did they-
as
were
were
they-
the local
you know,
police.
Were they
Judge,
needed in
but,
Dallas?
here's
Were
the-
they needed in Dallas?
Hold on.
And
Those are
DHS
federal
said so.
officers. The INS people themselves are federal officers.
Here's the problem,
They were
Judge.
protecting their own facility as well as the local police.
From our ivory towers, we
yeah.
can say
Yeah.
they don't need it because it's mostly people
They've
down
said
there.
it.
No, I
But
didn't
the
say
people-
that.
But the
I
people
didn't
that
say
are on
that.
the ground,
I said they were protected.
the policemen that are being
Hold on.
injured
They-
and that are on the ground, absolutely.
Hold on a second.
No
Hold on a
injuries
second, guys.
of local police.
Hold on a second, Tim. You just talked about policemen being injured. I mean, there have been policemen in Chicago and in Portland who have been actually victims of chemical agents being sprayed in the vicinity while they're trying to do their jobs to protect ICE agents and also to protect the First Amendment rights of protesters as well. So that's also happening. I mean, I think that there is a law enforcement imperative to allow everybody to exercise their rights, both
Absolutely,
the protesters, both the protesters and the ICE agents who are doing their jobs. But I think the question is, what is the balance here? And when I look at we have reporters on the ground in Portland, when you look at the video, you kind of have to wonder. I mean, this is basic crowd control stuff. Like a fence could do a lot to help here. And I think that some of the question that is being asked is, are they doing everything that they can short of bringing in the National Guard and using overwhelming force to allow protesters to protest and protect the safety of the ICE facility?
Well, Abby, on the first point that you made, actually every police officer in this country who goes to the police academy gets OC sprayed so that if they get exposed in the field, they know how to respond and still react. So that's no police officer is falling apart because
I
there's OC
understand
spray
that.
happening.
But the issue, hold on, but just to respond to that, look, the issue is in part.
Hold up a second.
Yeah, first, I want to back up the Democrat guy that worked for the Biden administration that only spoke for a few seconds. He's totally right. And thank God there's been no major hurricane hit our shores so far this year. It would be devastating what they've done to FEMA. And if we needed the National Guard, they won't be prepared. And who knows where half of them will be with this unnecessary bullcrap. Just waste of money. And the situation that these poor National Guard are probably in, they're not all staying at the Hilton, okay? I've heard horrible stories where these people are sleeping. But there's a plan. And it's not in our best interest as American citizens. They have a real bad plan. It's like Governor Pritzker of Illinois said. Yeah, they're not doing this for shits and giggles. Not only is it to try to make so-called Democrat cities look bad, which every major city in this country is a Democrat city. That's the way cities work, whether in a red state or blue state. Every major city in Texas is ran by a Democrat. Except for that no good piece of crap in Dallas who actually was a Democrat And after he won the election, switched to Republican. But that's the way cities work. Smarter people are normally around cities, metropolitan areas. Okay? Not to be, very negative on the small areas, but that is how it normally works. There are normally more universities, major universities, more educated, more progressive thinking people around major metropolitan areas. But back to this point. Yeah, they got something planned, and they're building towards it. And like Governor Pritzker said, he thinks it's more about the midterms to start. Eventually, it'll be about the major presidential election in 28. Don't forget, people, just because this man didn't succeed in 2020 doesn't mean it's not a crime. He tried very hard to steal that election. Don't forget about all those fake electors that they tried to put. Him calling people, trying to find fake votes on top of January the 6th. The man did everything he could. Him and the people that will follow him. Thank God there was a few people that had some integrity in that administration. He made sure that didn't happen this time. He's picked all lackeys. Total yes people. Look at Pam Bundy. Just arresting people on nothing. Convicting people on nothing. Just doing his bidding. That's not the USAG's job to do the bidding of the president. She's supposed to be our attorney general. People, this is not going to end well. They're just ramping up in these cities. They want this to be normalized to you. While our tourism is just dead. Check the tourism numbers. Yeah, he's running around bragging about how many illegal aliens won't come to the country now. While he won't tell you, at the same time, no tourists will come to this country either. Vegas is in trouble. Everywhere is in trouble. Florida, California, even California, who's friendly to those people, they still have to get into the country to get to California. You got to go through the checkpoint still at the airport to get into the country. They're pulling aside Canadians and Europeans and anything negative, any kind of dissent against Donald Trump that they may have posted. They're detaining these people. This is not what the United States is supposed to be. There's warning. There's tourist warnings that European countries are giving about the United States to not come here. Is this, Republicans, people on the right, is this what you want the United States to be? A horrible dictatorship that no one wants to come to. Think about that. The black guy, Tim Parrish, this guy, you see people like that, it's just shameful. Any decent person of color who has any kind of integrity, any respectability at all, you should not. Do you know how you're making yourself look? I guess the money is just so good that they're making being shameless house ends, butt kissers. And I mean, think about this. Any person of color, black, Latino, people from Arabs, Indians, think about what you're doing to yourself. It's the money. It's that money just that's so great that it's worth it. Just the rest of your life. This is what people are going to think about you. Think about that. Your family, your kids are going to have to listen to people talking about your dad, your mom, in a negative light. Because they were such shameless kiss. I'm trying to be nice about it. But I probably shouldn't. Because you're not only selling out, you're selling out not just your race and nationality, you're selling out the whole human race and nationality. these things don't end well. They never end well. Sooner or later, the dictator and his friends get what's coming to them. I mean legally. You know, not any kind of, someone just shooting somebody. I mean, they get what's coming to them legally. Some way, somehow. It can end like that for Hitler and most of his buddies. But they get what's coming to them. You know what I mean? I prefer it, being a legal justice system. But sometimes, like in Hitler, it didn't end that way. Yeah. But you think about this when you're kissing up to these people and shamelessly advocating for them on national TV. Things are gonna eventually come back around. Maybe not in this country. Maybe our, election system is so messed up now. They corrupted it so bad. But some way, somehow, it normally comes back to get you. Maybe the world, the international justice system, those world courts, we may get so bad that we may be put aside, like Germany. Normally, these people will be held accountable.